It can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering paranormal.
He meddled in things that you people. He meddled in things. He meddled in myths.
Where will we go next? It's a phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hi, I'm Alex Kaiju. To my left,
Jasmine with
across from us,
Eli Watson.
and we are
Cryptid Campfire.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cryptid Campfire Alien Airlines.
Yes, and this week we're storming Area 51. We're gonna see them aliens.
Yeah,
Well,
as covered by every international news line ever. Thousands report to go to Area 51 to quote unquote see them aliens.
yeah, for real though, guys, obviously we couldn't do an alien series without talking about Area 51.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
obviously this episode is being recorded and released before the actual event is happening, this whole Storm Area 51 thing. So we will be waiting
It serves
in
as-
anticipation
Yeah.
to see what actually happens this week.
It serves as a refresher for you.
Yeah, so if you're going to get your background knowledge,
Yeah.
make sure you listen to this before you head out to the desert.
You ought to know what you're up against before you storm it.
Yeah, before you get the Naruto run on, before we get all the Kyles hopped up on Monster for the drywalls, we got our memes ready to go. Florida Man will be there.
Honestly, though, the event has changed over the past few weeks where it's been a thing. Like, it's not supposed to be storming the Area 51
Yes.
anymore. It's a
It's-
music festival
Yeah.
Well, it's
called Alien Stock.
well, I guess it's pretty crazy because there was a Facebook post, there was a Facebook group like, "Hey everyone, Storm Area 51, they can't stop us all." Like, oh, that's kind of funny, you know. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. People started sharing, reposting,
Mhm.
making memes about it, to the point that like the actual government was like, "All right, everyone, we're gonna have to sit down. We're gonna have a conference on what a Naruto run exactly is."
Yeah.
And they had to explain what a meme was to generals at the Pentagon.
Yeah, no, for real though, August 20th of this year, so just a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
the officials in Lincoln County, Nevada voted to pre-sign an emergency declaration in preparation for the influx of visitors. So they're going to,
Whoa.
like,
They're-
they are terrified because so many people have claimed that they're gonna go to
Yeah.
the desert.
Dude.
And they don't have the resources. They don't
Yeah.
have the space. I mean, I guess
They're
you
breaking
could
it.
argue they have the space. It's the desert. But, like, they don't have the resources to support
Yeah.
that many people.
Water,
It's-
food.
Yeah, it's just like if like a Coachella just showed up out of nowhere in your town. You're
Yeah.
like, oh my god, what do we do? There's so many people.
That's exactly what's happening. It's just like, I kind of feel bad for the people living there, but
Yeah, honestly, I was disappointed at first because I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to Area 51. I wanted to go to this music festival, but I can't because I have acting class during that week. But then I was like, oh, maybe it's a good thing I'm not going.
Right.
Because I feel like this is going to be like a super stressful, dangerous thing. I watched a video on YouTube too about just like what traffic is going to be
Yeah.
like.
yeah.
Because it's like a one lane
Oh,
road
no.
out there, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, it's gonna be insane. I'm excited to see the coverage of it because it's gonna be like remember Occupy Wall Street? How insane that was, to where it's just like a bunch of weirdos like
Nope.
showing up.
Don't remember that at all.
Oh, and they had the Guy Fawkes masks from what's that movie?
I don't think either of us are
I
following
don't know.
here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It was the Alan Moore movie, V for Vendetta.
Ah.
The
Oh,
V for
okay.
Vendetta mask. Everyone was
Gotcha.
wearing those, and it was just like complete chaos. And there was just like, they're like, we don't have enough toilets in this area
Yeah.
for this influx of people.
Yeah.
So that's what Area 51 is gonna be like.
I mean, honestly, though, I wish them luck. Like, the guy who's in
Yeah.
charge of it, I don't want to say his name. I think it might. Is it Matty Roberts? I feel like that's
I
the
don't
name in
know.
my head. I don't know. I
The
could
Matty
be wrong.
Tatty Roberts.
Whoever it is, like, he's trying his best to make sure that it is handled well, but who knows what's really going to happen. But
Yeah.
we do wish the best. It's happening in
Yeah.
a couple of days, so honestly,
Yeah.
like, good luck. If you're headed out there, be careful. Bring lots of water. Make sure you're, like, full tank of gas with extra tanks ready to go.
Yeah, don't be a dick to anybody.
Yeah,
Just
honestly,
be on your best behavior.
it's going to be wild.
I was gonna go, and then I realized my brother's birthday is September 19th.
Oh,
So
So you're flying them out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Happy
right.
birthday. You drop them in the field of people. Find your way back home.
So, when this meme came out, this Facebook event, everybody just kind of like Area 51 is this thing that you hear and your brain just automatically goes to government conspiracies and aliens. But today on this episode, we kind of want to talk about the history of Area 51 and why it's even associated with aliens.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. You know, when you think Area 51, you think like secret government lab with aliens and time travel. It's like, well, where does that come from? Why do we think that? It's such like a common trope featured in popular culture.
And then when you actually dig in Area 51, you find out that it's actually pretty boring.
Honestly, it is, you guys.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's so disappointing, but we're still going to talk about it because it's still a little bit fun.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with a little bit of the history.
Why is it called Area 51?
Nobody knows.
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
exactly.
Literally nobody knows, and I'll mention it a little bit.
And
here.
did you guys get what it's actually called?
Well, the official name.
Paradise Ranch.
Paradise Ranch.
That's one of the nicknames
That's
for
one
it.
of the nicknames. It's also known as Dreamland as a nickname.
Dreamland.
But the official name is what I believe, Homey Airport.
KXTA and Groom Lake.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Why is it such a dumb name?
That's where the homies go.
That's where the homies go.
So, Area 51 is a secret U.S. Air Force military installation located at Groom Lake in southern Nevada. It's actually administered by Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California, which I don't know much about military. I thought that was interesting that
Yeah.
they're in two different states, but one is running it.
Mm-hmm.
So in November of 1954, and guys, feel free to stop me if I'm going chronologically here, but feel free to stop me if I miss something.
Okay.
So, November 1954, President Eisenhower approved the secret development of a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft called the U-2 program.
Mm-hmm.
The CIA officer Richard Bissell was overseeing the development of this plane, and one of the first orders of business was to track down a remote covert location for training and testing. Like, if we're going to make this plane, we got to make sure we have somewhere, to keep it safe and secret.
And I'm sorry, you said the year, right?
1954 is when the
Yeah, okay, all right.
is when the
I just want to get that clear because I'm going to bring up a point later.
Okay.
Yeah.
1954.
Yeah.
Also, 1954 is the year Godzilla came out.
Nice.
It is.
Yeah.
Cool, continue.
So they have to find where they can take this plane. And so Bissell first saw the salt flat at Groom Lake in the southern Nevada desert while on an aerial scouting mission. So they were literally like flying planes trying to find, where they could make this other plane. And it had previously been a World War II aerial gunnery range for Army Air Corps pilots. So Bissell, along with three others, including Colonel Osmond Ritlin and Kelly Johnson, director of the Lockheed Corporation's Skunk Works, agreed that the area would, quote, make an ideal site for testing the U-2 training pilots. So they requested that the Atomic Energy Commission add the area to its real estate holdings in Nevada. So then in 1955, the CIA officially chose the location to test the Lockheed. Is it Lockheed or Lockheed?
I think it's Lockheed.
Lockheed.
Well, Lockheed sounds cooler.
It does.
Yeah, but
Operation Lockheed.
they also named it Homey Airport.
Yeah.
Lockheed U-2 reconnaissance plane. So, that's how we pick this. And I'll go a little more into the name a little bit later because it came from looking at maps from the Atomic Energy Commission. But so test flights of that spy plane and subsequent aircraft accounted for many of the UFO sightings in that area. This is where the rumors kind of start. Because people are seeing strange lights and strange crafts in the sky, in the desert, in this area. And they're like, what the crap is that? It can't be a plane because normal planes only reach 10 to 20,000 feet. And it can't be a military aircraft because military aircraft only reach 40,000 feet. These things were as high as 60,000 feet. So the normal, human, even the normal pilot would be seeing these things in the air and being like, what the F is that? It can't be a plane. It just can't be a plane.
Right.
And, of course, Air Force officials knew that the majority of these sightings were the plane, were the U-2 tests. But, obviously, they weren't allowed to reveal these details to the public because it's a secret mission.
That's the whole thing with Project Blue Book. They investigated a bunch of sightings that were actually tests of these, but they were unable to reveal to the public that, hey, these are actually stealth planes.
Yeah, these are like the future of aircraft technology.
You know, and to think that you know that and you can't tell them, these people are like, dude, I saw aliens. It's like, no, you didn't. Ah, shut up.
I saw an alien from outer space. They're gonna colonize the entire world. Like, no, it's just a plane.
So because we couldn't actually tell people that these are secret government planes that we're going to be using to spy on other countries, natural phenomena or high altitude weather research became the go-to explanations.
Okay.
So that's kind of what they tried to tell
and
people.
that's where you get the weather balloon gag. Because everyone said, oh, it's just the weather balloons. Well, because that's what they would say. They're like, yeah, it's just, I don't know what you guys expect. It's a weather balloon. It's a little bit of swamp gas. Like,
a little bit of swamp gas.
You know, it flew in
It's
all
flares.
it's flares riding a parachute by swamp gas propelled in the air. It's very simple.
So after the U-2 was put into service in 1956, Area 51 was used to develop other aircraft, including the A-12, also known as Oxcart,
Project Oxcart,
and the stealth fighter F-117 Nighthawk.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Cool names.
Actually, I think my 7th grade teacher's husband worked on the Nighthawk.
Yeah?
Actually, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. He was a homie.
He was a homie
From Homie Airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Management of Area 51 was actually transferred from the CIA to the Air Force by the year 1978.
Okay.
Good year.
Yeah. Wild. A year after Star Wars came out.
So that's the bulk of the background. But then we get into some
Well, did you get that during the Cold War, the U.S. government was testing and evaluating captured Soviet aircraft there?
I did not.
Yeah, they were. So like anytime they caught like a Soviet plane, they would take it to Area 51 to like take apart and study.
Yeah, they'd be like, "What's all this?"
Yeah.
Like, so it's just mostly made out of vodka bottles.
Yeah. So, what?
So when do we get to the reverse engineering, alien time travel, alien stuff?
Just you wait. We have more government stuff to talk about first.
All right.
Whoa, governments?
Well,
I don't understand politics.
In 2013, the CIA approved for the release of declassified documents chronicling the history of the U-2 and Oxcart programs. So these documents were released in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, which was submitted in 2005 by American intelligence historian Jeffrey T. Richelson of the George Washington University National Security Archive. So the release of the documents marked the first time that the U.S. government formally acknowledged the existence of Area 51. And the documents claim that the site's secret status was a way to keep information from the Soviets rather than to cover up an alien encounter.
Right.
And did they call it by its a name or?
So the U.S. government's official name for Area 51 is, besides the airport thing that you mentioned, is the Nevada Test and Training Range. Like that's literally all it is.
Okay.
And why this area has become designated as Area 51 isn't exactly known, but like I mentioned earlier, diagrams from the 1960s refer to it as Area 51.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the Atomic Energy Commission kind of gridded the different land, like they separated it into parts.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is area this. Like they put borders. Like they made little sections to kind of talk about the land. And we also mentioned it was previously referred to as Paradise Ranch, which was used in order to make the facility sound more attractive to those that would be working there.
Okay.
Just go look up pictures of Area 51. You will realize there's nothing out there.
There's no paradise there.
There's no cows walking around on this ranch.
Yeah. So it still is an active base, which is important to know if you plan on going there this week.
Yeah.
It is guarded by people with guns. It's used as an open training range for the U.S. Air Force. Area 51.
You want me to go into a little bit about if you try to approach, the surveillance system?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because they have, first of all, in addition to security cameras and motion sensors, they have motion sensors buried in the ground on public land to notify security guards that there are people coming.
Okay.
So they will know that you're coming before you even get close to Area 51.
Yeah, and then that's when they sick the alien hybrid dogs on you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So cameras and weapons are not allowed, And neither military nor civilian aircraft are allowed to be in the area space around Area 51 or Groom Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because they fly in on private airplanes.
On Janet Airline.
Oh.
That's where they transport civilian and military personnel to Area 51 from McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So you might have, because the way I found out about this was I heard that there was like unscheduled flights flying people in and out of Area 51. Nobody knew what it was about. And then I found this, and I was like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
They're just flying. Obviously, how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
So
the airspace that's restricted above Area 51 is 575 square miles.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's pretty large in relation to... No, just kidding.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because it's like pretty close to Vegas.
It is.
Like, it's just like north of it. So it's just funny to think, you're like, oh, I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to go play the slots. I'm going to go see, Penn and Teller. I'm going to get drunk with a buddy. Storm Area 51.
So it is a current, it is a secret base. It is a secret
And
government base.
Deadly force is authorized
Yes.
against trespassers. So
With extreme prejudice.
they will probably kill you.
Yeah.
So aerospace historian and author Peter Merlin hypothesizes that the current work that goes on at Area 51 could probably include improved stealth technology, advanced weapons, electronic warfare systems, and in particular, unmanned aerial vehicles. There's another U2 historian named Chris Pocock, and
U2.
he thinks that classified aircraft, more exotic forms of radio communication, directed energy weapons, and lasers are currently under development at the base.
Yeah.
So why the heck do we think there's aliens there besides seeing the lights?
You said one thing, and I do want to touch on it because it's actually pretty cool. You said that they do unmanned aircraft there.
Yes.
I believe it was called the D-21 Tag Board, which I think was the first, unmanned drone, high-altitude drone for surveillance, and that was done in 1962.
Whoa.
So I think that's pretty cool. But also, back to the aliens.
Yeah, where are they at?
I don't know. But people say, and I'm going to rebut this right now, was that people say that the remains taken from the crash site at Roswell was taken at Area 51, but that is not possible. It's also not factual because they were taken to Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
how many aliens have you seen?
All of them.
The remains were taken by, someone with the last name of With. And they've been a family heirloom since.
Oh, man.
Whoa.
I wish. No, just kidding. I don't. I wouldn't want that on my family.
Right. We just said that Area 51 really didn't, kind of exist till 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And Roswell happened in 1947,
right?
so it's so they just
they opened the time portal to take the remains to the future Area 51.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. So that definitely did not happen.
Yeah.
The timeline doesn't make sense for that.
Nah.
And also they hauled out Indiana Jones to look at the wreckage.
Yeah, that's right.
So Eli and I talked before we started recording, and we have some, I wouldn't say varying opinions or contradicting research. I will just say that we are each playing a different side. I'm not advocating for or against the information that I'm going to provide, but Eli is very much against it.
I'm ready for your hate. I'm ready for the hate.
Ready for the hate. So, but before we get into that, is there anything else we should mention before we get a little bit crazy?
I mean, we're talking about aliens now.
Yeah, we're talking about aliens.
We're talking about aliens. So we set up the history of Area 51. No one knows why it's called Area 51.
Nope.
But we know that it was set up, in the 50s. So with the purpose of it. So now you know the history of the building and the area. So now let's talk about, we're talking about them aliens, where they came from. We're getting off the deep end now. It's the fun part of the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Responsibility is out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I guess I was trying to give an opening for anything before we talk about this guy, but is there anything before that?
Well, okay, it's a slight thing, but it's probably in due reference because of this man.
Okay.
But in 1996, there was a documentary called Dreamland, directed by Bruce Burgess or Burgess.
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 I don't know. He interviewed a guy who said he worked there in the 50s and said that they worked on a flying saucer emulator. But that's kind of interesting because they were working on propulsion systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Canada in the 50s had a hovercraft.
Yeah.
Using a pretty unique hover system, or like
a lot of like maple syrup involved.
Yeah, totally.
The magic of maple syrup.
Oh, also, can I bring this up? It's a little note.
Oh.
Someone wrote to the United States Air Force asking about information regarding Area 51, and they received a letter back in the mail, and they said, and I quote, Neither the Air Force nor the Department of Defense owns or operates any location known as Area 51, which is low-key true.
Yeah.
Because
It's
it's
not
not
called
called
Area
Area
51.
51.
Yeah.
So
They got him on a technicality.
Loophole.
Everyone just start writing to the government. What's the deal with Homie Lake? Homie, was it Homie Airport?
Airfield, yeah.
Airfield.
Homie Airfield.
Yeah. Homie Airfield. What's the deal?
Let me see them homies.
Yeah. Some homies from space.
Anyways, so let's get into it.
So one of the main reasons that people believe aliens to be associated with Area 51 is thanks to a man named Bob Lazar, who Eli has some strong feelings about, apparently. Yes,
You mean
Dennis.
Dennis?
Yes,
Yeah.
Dennis.
Oh,
Dennis
what a
the Menace.
load.
Okay, so let's go through this. I watched a documentary that's currently on Netflix. It's called Bob Lazar,
Bob
Area
Lazar.
51 and Flying Saucers. It's by a guy named Jeremy Corbell. He's an investigative filmmaker who has a series called Extraordinary Beliefs.
Weaponize
So most of
your
my-
thoughts.
So most of my information comes from this one source, which is biased in favor of Bob Lazar. So
Mhm.
that's why this information is biased, because that's what the documentary was.
Yeah.
Which is what Eli is going to give us in a little bit, is going to be the rebuttal to that and the devil's advocate. So let me just tell you what this documentary said and try and get to the bottom of the facts, like what's factual from this documentary. So it is a fact that in 1989, a man named Robert Lazar claimed he worked on extraterrestrial technology near Area 51. He told Las Vegas television reporter George Knapp that he had seen autopsy photographs of aliens inside the facility, and that the U.S. government used the facility to examine recovered alien spacecraft. So this is 1989. The CBS affiliate KLAS in Las Vegas is the station that covered most of the story for a long amount of time. They had running stories on him for like months. George Knapp being the main reporter. The first time that he came forward, he had kept his identity a secret. He was shadowed out, called himself Dennis.
Yeah.
Menace.
The interview is pretty great too, because it's like him in a car.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he gets out, and you can see his
him.
face.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Oh, my
They show
Lord.
the interview, and it's just like, so it's like it's George Knapp, and you hear a lady's voice, and they're like, yeah, so we're talking with an individual who claims to have worked for Area 51. And the guy's like, yeah, hi. And they're like, so, is there any way you can let us know? I can't let you know that I actually work there for fear of my own safety, but I did work in the propulsion and jet section area. And it's like, well, that could kind of single people out. Like,
Yeah.
but he's like in a car. He's like, yeah. And the lady's like, so you don't have any proof or anything? He's like, not really. And then she stops talking for the rest of the interview, and it's just George Knapp being like, tell us about them aliens. Tell us about the jet propulsion. And so after they talk, he's like, all right, well, thank you for this interview. We'll catch you next time, hopefully. And he gets out of the car, and you can see his face
Yeah, like the
illuminated.
sunlight shines on him,
Yeah,
and you can see
it
his
was-
profile.
And then it was just like, wait, that was the first interview?
So
It's like, real quick, there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer becomes Mr. X, and he starts writing a blog about all the gossip in town.
Yeah.
But the picture for the author is Mr. X, and it's a picture of Homer, and then a bag goes over his head that says Mr. X. So it's like that.
So, in this first interview, Lazar claimed that 9 flying saucers were being held at a base, get this, called S4,
Mm-hmm.
which is near Area 51.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar did not even work at Area 51. He
No.
worked at a separate base known as S4.
He was at the kids' table.
Yep.
This is where these discs, these saucers, were being flight tested and analyzed. And like you said, Alex, he worked specifically in power and propulsion. claimed to have no idea where the crafts came from, but said it was impossible for our government to have created them, making claims that gravity propulsion and antimatter reactors were technologies that didn't yet exist in our world. And the main reason that he came forward with any of this information was because he said that it was a crime against the American people and the scientific community to keep these things hidden. Mm-hmm. So these crafts were like reverse engineered. They were trying to create, I mean, you kind of know what reverse engineering is, you know, like taking it apart to see how it works and then seeing if we can recreate it with the materials that are available to us. This documentary goes into like Bob's background, trying to figure out how he got the job, talking about the interviews that he had and how when he was interviewing for S4, like they were interested in what he was doing outside of work. He learned something about an element called element 115.
Yeah, that like exploded, right?
Yeah. And George Knapp, and we'll talk more about element 115 in a little bit. George Knapp spent 8 months trying to verify Bob's background. And this is where it gets a little sketchy and a little weird.
Nothing at all. Sorry,
but,
go ahead.
But is that true? Because in the documentary I watched, says Bob worked at Los Alamos National Lab. But when they called the lab, they said they had no record of him ever working there.
Yeah. Mm.
But then they found
he's in the phone book.
The phone book for the lab. And he is listed.
I know why he's in there. But
I'm
gonna wait.
We'll get to,
I'm gonna wait.
All right.
Okay.
So this just kind of puts some mystery into it.
Yeah, who is this man of international mystery?
And then Bob was also claiming, you know, they wouldn't have hired me out of high school. Obviously, I had to have some kind of schooling, but like the schools they called, like he couldn't provide proof of ever going there.
He said he
went to MIT and Caltech.
Yeah, the master's in physics from MIT, and a master's in electronic technology at Caltech. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big meaty accomplishment right there. Yeah. Like 2 masters. Ooh.
It's a funny thing though, because at one point Bob got mixed up with some prostitutes.
Oh yeah.
When he was trying to help them set up a brothel.
Yeah.
And this is where people are like,
I know.
Eli is so ready. I'm giving you the background, and then Eli's gonna take it away.
You need to...
So he tried to set up this brothel with these prostitutes, and then got prosecuted and investigated and everything. And when the authorities were trying to verify his background as well, he gave them the same story.
Yeah.
And so the argument is, if he had made all of this up, it was in his best interest to come clean at this point because he was in legal trouble. So, like, why would he still stick to these lies that have to do with Area 51 and S4 and aliens when it has nothing to do with the prostitution that he was involved with?
They're like, sir, you've been caught with 12 prostitutes. Listen,
he's like, but I worked at Area 51.
I worked at S4. We had 9 discs, and they're like, okay, sir, but you've been caught with these prostitutes and this deed that you're trying to set up a brothel. He's like, but there's 5 that we're working for that were dismantled. We were trying to do the jet propulsion. They're like, okay, sir, but listen. And then they literally threw the book at him just to get him to stop talking.
Oh my.
So that's
the end
that's
of
kind
old Bob Lazar.
It's not even the end though. He currently runs United Nuclear, which I legit got nervous visiting the website for because I am probably now on some sort of watch list.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
He sells scientific equipment and supplies as well as like runs his own experiments, and he has been raided twice.
With more prostitutes?
Once in 2003, and once during the filming of this Netflix documentary.
I'll get into why all of that happened.
They claim that it happened. The government claims that they were looking for like a receipt or like proof of sale because they had a concern that he had, let's see, this is the 2003 raid. It was concerned with the chemicals, specifically sulfur, potassium, perchlorate, and powdered aluminum, which can all be made to make illegal fireworks. So that was the reason they raided him in 2003. Now, he was also raided during the making of this documentary, which is, this is in Michigan now. So the United Nuclear and Bob lives in Michigan.
Oh, they do?
I believe so.
I thought he still lived in Los Alamos.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's in Michigan. I could be wrong. There were a lot of locations in this documentary.
I don't blame you.
They're jumping
so.
around a lot. I'm pretty sure it's in Michigan. I could be wrong, but
I don't know.
the reason that they were raided during this documentary is supposedly because Jeremy, the filmmaker, and Bob had gone into Bob's backyard to have a discussion about Element 115. This section of the documentary was excluded. Like, the conversation that they had was not a part of the actual documentary.
Okay.
So we don't know what was said, but we are being told in this documentary that they had a conversation about Element 115, and the very next day, the FBI showed up at Bob Lazar's front door.
Okay.
So they speculate that they had been bugged, chipped, spied on, and the information, Eli is shaking his head, and the information that Bob shared with Jeremy in the making of this documentary was heard by the FBI.
Yeah.
And then they tried to come and find it. So he claims, this is because back 30 years ago, Bob had claimed to have taken Element 115 out of S4. So the FBI showed up, and in this documentary, Bob does not feel comfortable addressing the possibility that they may be trying to shake him down in order to find Element 115. Like, Jeremy literally tries to ask him about it, and he's like, I'm not comfortable talking about it. Like, I don't feel safe.
It's because you don't remember the story that you were told to tell. Anyways, continue.
So just to attempt to explain what Element 115 is, because I don't really follow it. It's an element that is the fuel provided for the power to the reactor in these spacecrafts to work. It affects gravity, produces its own gravitational energy. Its code name was LA-1000. And the lie when they were outsourcing it, so when they were like getting information and running tests and stuff with outside sources and third parties, they would say, oh, it's an element that we're using in an advanced armor. Okay. That way there was no questions being asked. In the documentary, Bob goes through this whole thing trying to explain where the element comes from, or not even where it comes from, just how it's made. Because apparently the starting point that Bob ever saw was a cylinder, which was made up of a bunch of discs of this element that's copper in color. And so, like, that's
just a stack of CDs.
Basically. So that's as far back as Bob knows about how the element comes to be.
Okay.
From there, it gets, like, sliced into cones, and then the cones get sliced into triangles, and then the triangles get rounded edges, and then that little rounded edge triangle is what fuels, the ship.
Okay.
He also claimed, this was pretty funny, this made me laugh. At one point in, like, 30 years ago, he claimed to have walked by a window and seen an alien.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Two scientists talking to an alien. But in this documentary,
he claims it's not.
He claims it's not. He says, it was
just
a quick
a very
glance.
Ugly man.
No, what he thinks it is it was two scientists looking at scale models of what the inside of the crafts look like.
Okay.
So they had, like, some sort of doll
a
sitting
dummy or something.
in a chair.
Okay. And then it turns out he
my
was...
boy Toby.
It was also weird.
Turned out he was the dummy.
It was weird, though, because he claims... He does say this. He has never claimed to see any living aliens. He's never spoken to any aliens or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's seen briefings and he's seen autopsy reports and all this other stuff, but he's never seen a real alien. However, when referring to the aliens on the base, they would call them, quote, the kids, which was really creepy.
The kids. And then they drop him off at the pool.
So he's gone under hypnosis with a guy named Lane Keck to try and recall the details and specifics, to try and remember fine details, to paint like a bigger picture of the things he saw on the base and explain things better. Towards the end of the documentary, he got into a lot of technical stuff about how the craft supposedly worked, and he drew diagrams, which he now sells prints of.
Ooh,
and
an artiste.
He used big words that I really couldn't follow. Like,
because they don't actually mean anything.
But the ending note of this documentary was, quote, the evidence that he's telling the truth outweighs the evidence that he's not. However, I have a feeling Eli disagrees with that. But before we do that, Bob Lazar is a real person.
He is a real person.
He's still alive.
That's a real name.
So
it's not fake.
Let's be careful what we say.
Oh, no.
But
because... Just all right.
Wait. Before we go,
I
do want to read one post that he made on Instagram regarding Area 51.
Oh, he has an Instagram?
He does have an Instagram. So Bob Lazar has an Instagram. He's United Nuclear Bob. And he posted a screenshot of the storm area.
United Nuclear Bob 420.
He posted a screenshot of the Storm Area 51 Facebook event. And he says, I have to comment on this Storm Area 51 thing. I do understand it was started as a joke by someone, but there are a number of people who are actually planning to show up. This is a misguided idea. Area 51 is a classified research base. There are no aliens or alien technology located there. The only place that there ever was any alien technology was at Site S4, south of Area 51 proper. That was 30 years ago. S4 may have moved decades ago, or it's possible it's no longer being used for the project. I do not support this movement. The last time someone tried to get into Area 51, he was shot. This is not the way to go about trying to get more information. What is good is the interest in the subject, the science, and the technology. That is what would immediately change the world we live in.
And then it says, please buy my book.
Yeah.
No. But his next post says, for those who asked for them, the sport model sketch prints are now available.
Hey.
You can find them at unitednuclear.com in the Area 51 section.
Oh, how much do they go for?
I'm not sure. I'm afraid to visit the website.
Okay.
But you can look later.
Yeah, let's see. It's just a fake front for more prostitution.
So that documentary was like an hour and a half long, and like I said, it was biased in favor of Bob Lazar. So I didn't really do much more outside of that, which is fine because Eli is going to school us.
Yeah. Well, okay. Look, I tried watching the documentary. I think it's a terrible documentary. If you would like to watch good documentary about anything in this realm, I recommend Small Town Monsters because I don't know how they do it, but it's good, and I enjoy watching them.
So, Jasmine, you watched the whole documentary.
Yeah. I did.
You watched, the first 5 minutes?
Half of it.
Half of it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I watched the first 15 minutes of it, and I was like, well, because I was confused.
Yeah.
Because the minute you press play on Netflix, it's just some weird guy walking in the desert with, a weird background, and then his face appears also when he's walking. And it says, hi, my name's so-and-so.
Jeremy Corbell.
Jeremy Corbell. And I have an octopus tattooed on my arm. So it means I'm very fluid like an octopus, but I grab onto many things.
I don't remember any of that.
Well, he goes on. He says a bunch of weird stuff. And then I was like, wait, isn't this about Bob Lazar? I was like, did I put the wrong movie on?
No, I will say it wasn't my favorite because there's a lot of narration that...
Oh, it's the saddest narration. It's
pretty try-hard.
It's by Mickey Rourke.
Honestly, though, before I say anything more of it, this guy made a documentary, and his documentary is on Netflix, so he's doing better than we are.
Congrats.
Yeah.
But I will say,
it's bad.
While I wasn't too in tune with the narration, I think a lot of it is mismatched and doesn't make any sense. I was very intrigued by the interview parts when they tried to do the research and things like that. Talking to actual Bob Lazar and talking to George Knapp and stuff was intriguing and was entertaining, but there's a lot of back and forth where I kind of lose focus. But I do not regret watching it because I feel like I'm about to learn a lot.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I gave Bob Lazar an honest try.
Yeah.
I did because I wanted to believe him, as I feel like a lot of us do. And if you believe that Bob Lazar is real, I'm not going to try to change your mind.
Bob Lazar does exist. He is real.
He's a real person.
I meant like his
believe
story.
That his story is true.
If you want to believe the story of Dennis.
I'm not going to bash you for it, but I needed to get to the bottom of it because a lot of the things scientifically he says does not make sense.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist. I have taken an astronomy course in college. I've also read Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. That does not by any means make me an expert, but it gave me some background to understand that antimatter reactor does not exist.
Also, you have a podcast, so that means you have some authority.
Yeah, right?
Which is what Bob Lazar claims. He says it can't exist. He says that we can't make it.
Yeah,
but who says that the aliens
can't?
It
does exist because apparently the UFO... That's not how antimatter works.
Yeah.
Anyways, but... Because when antimatter comes in contact with actual matter, they cease to exist.
Yeah.
So how, in any way, can you make that to do... What does he call it? A gravity... He called it like a gravity increaser or gravity...
Enhancer?
I only
Something like
ever
that.
heard him say the words like propulsion and reactor and things like that.
Yeah, well,
he said something about coaxium,
anyways,
and if you
I'm
don't
not-
get it processed.
see, there's two ways you can go about this. You can go the scientific route and try to break it all down, and that'll take you ages
Mhm.
because he said so many different things,
Yeah.
a lot of them contradictory. Or you can just start with the beginning.
Mhm.
And I'm going to go a little bit of the scientific route just because I see the hand scanner thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big point in the documentary that verifies that he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Just a quick insert about what that actually is. Bob Lazar claimed that when he was working at S4, he was required to put his hand on some type of scanner when he arrived at work, and he tried to explain what the scanner was, saying that it involved poles and sticks and lights and things, and it supposedly measured the length of bones in your body, or length of bones in your hand, which is significant to each person. Everyone said that was crazy and whatever, but then a few years later, we found out that those things really exist, and pictures came out, and he was like, I told you so!
Yeah, and it does exist, and it was used in the 80s to get into top secret locations. But the thing is, that was public knowledge in 1971. People knew that those existed.
Mm-hmm.
That was out there. In 1977, they're actually shown in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This is like
10 years later.
10 years before Bob Lazar even comes out with his story.
Yeah.
So to think that he knew this top secret information, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
Spielberg knew about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sorry.
Eli's really passionate about this, you guys.
It's also
and it's
called.
fine.
It's called the Identimat 2000.
Identimat.
So if you want to look it up, there it is.
Yeah.
It actually looks pretty cool. I think it does measure the length of your bones. I don't know if it's still used. Anyways. So I will say that Bob Lazar does, or whoever he's working with, does do their research. They find out these things that maybe the masses don't read, but they are out there.
Yes.
So also, I just want to bring up the fact that there's no mention of S4 anywhere.
Yeah. They couldn't get the rights.
You know, with Area 51, there's been a mass influx of people claiming to have worked at Area 51, to have worked on aliens, to have done this stuff. But not one of them says that they worked at S4.
Yeah.
You know?
Just Bob.
Just Bob, which strikes me as a little fishy. And then he says that S4 has moved. But let's get into when he was under hypnosis, and he talks about how he got his job.
Okay.
Why they hired him. And it was to replace 2 scientists who had died in a nuclear explosion in a hangar bay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That was not anywhere in the documentary.
It's not, but it's there. He says that several times. And I think there's like 2 interviews back in the 90s where he talks about that. He's talking to George Knapp about that. A nuclear explosion in a hangar bay on the north side of Groom Lake probably would have taken out half of Groom Lake.
Yeah.
And nobody noticed.
You'd be hanging out in Vegas. You're like, oh, there's a big mushroom cloud over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah, all it said in the interview or in the documentary was that he had interviewed for a senior staff physicist position because they had lost one.
He was replacing
the two
that died in a nuclear explosion in a hangar bay.
There was 3 people in that explosion. 2 passed away, and the one that got into the fridge at just the right time.
Oh, are you talking about Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
Anyways, he also talks about how element 115 is not able to create in a lab, but we did.
Oh, we did?
It's called Moscovium, and that's how we discovered it.
Do we call it element 115?
We call it Moscovium. I don't know who discovered it, but element 115 is basically, it's number 115 on the periodic table. That's why it's called element 115.
What's it do?
Well, how do you know that those 2 are the same thing? I'm genuinely curious now.
Because it's the number of protons that are in the atom.
But did he ever make any claims about that information?
Well, that's why he's calling it element 115. I think he also called it ununpentium.
Ununtainium?
Yeah. And then he also says that we couldn't create it in a lab, but that is how we discovered it.
Okay.
But but this is where I'm confused. How can you prove that those 2 things are the same thing? If he can't provide element 115, and if he's telling you what this is, how do we know that what we've created is what he's claiming to have seen?
Because he wouldn't have called it element 115. The numbering
system. Is this a science thing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the number of protons.
Okay.
That's how the elemental table works. You
Okay.
count the number of protons that are in a single atom.
Okay.
So element 115 means it
have
has 115 protons in the nucleus.
Okay.
So by
And that was
definition,
something that
by
didn't
calling
exist.
it element
Okay.
115,
It implies that
that it is, element 115,
Yeah.
and we
Okay.
discovered it by creating it in a lab, which
Okay.
he said was impossible.
Okay.
But evidently it's not. Anyways,
And then you just shave it down and stick it in the gas plug, and you got thermal nuclear energy.
yeah. Anyways, our good friend Stanton Friedman,
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Rest in power.
He dug into Bob Lazar a little bit back in the day, back in the 90s, and he dug up some very interesting things.
Uh-oh.
So we have Bob. He went as far back as Bob Lazar's high school history.
Okay.
So Bob Lazar only took one science course in all of high school, and it was chemistry. He graduated after his class. He graduated in August, so basically he had to do summer school.
Oh, no.
And on top of that, he graduated in the bottom third of his class.
Oof. And he got swirlies
And
every
this is
day.
all
This is verified. This is real. This is Robert Lazar in high school. He also claims that he worked in Los Alamos National Lab. As Jasmine mentioned, they called the lab. They said, we don't know who Bob Lazar is. But he's in the phone book. Why could that be? Because technically Bob Lazar did work in the lab.
Don't tell me he was a janitor or something like that.
He was an independent contractor through Kirk Meyer. So he was probably a janitor.
Oh my god! No!
So
he had to clean the bathrooms every day.
they asked him about when he graduated from Caltech. He said, I don't know, maybe around 1982.
Oh, okay.
He said, I don't know, maybe around 1982.
Yeah.
You know,
Not know?
yeah.
I mean,
But then they asked him, well, can you tell us the name of a professor who taught you there? He said, Dr. Bill Duxler.
Okay.
When they looked it up, Bill Duxler does not teach at Caltech. He teaches at Pierce Junior College,
Okay.
which Bob Lazar went to and was enrolled in his class the time he said he was going to Caltech.
Okay.
Also, to have a master's degree from MIT in physics, you have to have a thesis.
Yeah.
No thesis exists. No one's heard of him at MIT. He's not in any of the yearbooks. Like, you think.
And the thing about yearbooks too is like you could, for a lot of this stuff, you could argue, well, the government covered it up, like they made him disappear, like a Men in Black situation, but like they can't get their hands on every yearbook that people had.
Or the even sadder truth is, he did go to MIT, did get his master's. The government's covering it up, but he was such a nerd that they didn't even include him in the yearbook. They forgot about him.
So, in this, what I'm about to bring up next, that was our good friend Stanton Friedman who brought us that information.
Thank you, Friedman.
That kind of just exposes all of his education history and how that's, negligible.
Yeah.
He did make an argument in the documentary, though, about how that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, who cares where I went to school? Who cares about, like, do you want to go back to where I was born and all this stuff? And
Sure.
he's like, it doesn't matter
I mean,
where I
if he's
went.
offering, we can all go to.
Yeah.
He was like, none of this matters. What matters is what I saw there and getting that information out.
But that's where the next part comes in.
And he also said he has no motivation to lie because this has ruined his life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's why he takes $5,000 per interview.
Ooh.
That's public record, by the way. Anyways,
He's got
this next is, I didn't compile this information myself, but this guy did a video and he compiled a bunch of public records. I suppose he could have photoshopped it all. I don't believe that he would go through the work just to disprove Bob Lazar.
Well, why would Bob Lazar go through the work to try and prove himself?
He's doing it
because
for the
he's
lulz.
making it a lot of money. Him and George Knapp are making a lot of money. And this is, I'm going to get into it.
Ooh,
all right.
Also,
I feel like this is going to go for a while.
yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit, but trust me, once I say it, you're gonna look at Bob Lazar in a completely different light.
Ooh, and also, we used to work at S4 too. So if you want to interview us, that'll be $5,000, please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, at first it's gonna seem like, why am I talking about this?
Yeah.
But
Why
I
are you
think
talking about this?
it needs to be said. So, Bob Lazar married his first wife in 1982.
Okay.
Her name was Carol. She was 34. He was 21.
Ooh.
They got married in California, and then they moved to Los Alamos.
Mm-hmm.
In 1985, Bob borrows money to buy a house in Vegas. Carol moves to Las Vegas, but Bob stays in Los Alamos.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to put this in, but when they're living in Los Alamos, they're running a photo shop together.
Okay.
You know, developing film, okay? But that all goes away in 1985. So while his first wife is in Las Vegas, he meets his soon-to-be second wife, Tracy, in Los Alamos.
Sketchy.
Uh-oh.
This is also when he started up the Honeysuckle Ranch, which
Oh.
was a brothel, not the one he got busted for, but
Was
a
it
different one. Yeah. So he marries Tracy in 1986. But
Yeah.
wait, he's still married to his first wife.
Oh, no.
Yes, that is correct.
He's a polygamist.
Yeah, so he's married to Tracy on April 19th, 1986.
Okay.
It's very important, the dates.
And this, again, is coming from public records
Public
that were
records.
compiled by some guy on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
On
So,
April...
If we wanted to, we could try and go find these public records as well.
Oh, yeah, they're out there. On April 21st, 3 days after he marries his second wife, Carol, his first wife, is found dead in her garage due to
Shut up.
carbon monoxide poisoning. There's no autopsy performed, and it's ruled as a suicide.
Oh.
That same week,
What?
him and Tracy move into that house. Not only that, the day his first wife dies, on April 21st, he files for bankruptcy, citing loss of spouse as the reason for it, and he goes under oath, swearing that he has no other relationships at the time.
Whoa.
So he's lying. Just saying, that is public record.
Okay.
That is out there. Not only that, so they move into that house.
They even do a dance on the dead wife's body
On
for
April,
good measure.
let's see.
Alex, these are real people we're talking about.
Yeah, what the heck?
Anyways, him and Tracy get married again, a second time. But
Oh,
this
They
time,
renew their vows.
no, Tracy uses a different name.
Oh. She goes
She
by
uses-
Lacey.
She goes by Jackie.
Oh, okay.
And that's probably because she ends up buying a house somewhere that she can... There's like a bunch of stuff going on here to where he gets a lot of money.
Yeah.
From the bankruptcy, from money that his accountants supposedly stole. We think, that Jackie or Tracy got remarried to him under the second name is so that that she wouldn't be linked to the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
You know, because she was married, 3 days before the bankruptcy
Mhm.
thing. But Jackie technically wasn't married during the bankruptcy thing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Hey, man, legal system. You
Uh,
just change your name.
the documentary talks about his jet car a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
His jet car was created for Desert Blast. Basically, it was like this festival. It was a private event for like the first couple of years.
Okay. Oh, it's all the people go out in the desert and they show
It's-
off their, like,
yeah.
experiments and stuff.
Mhm, people blowing stuff up. George Knapp actually covers it 3 years before the Dennis interview.
Okay.
Keep in mind, Bob Lazar is the guy who created and ran Desert Blast.
Ooh.
George Knapp covers it 3 years before the Dennis interview, and that's on YouTube. You can find that news report.
Yeah.
It's a news video. It's so crazy, dude. Some guy covers himself in fireworks and lights himself on fire.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. But George Knapp is there covering it.
Yeah.
3 years later, he says he's meeting Dennis for the very first time.
Ooh.
I think that's highly unlikely that he would cover Project Desert Blast 3 years prior.
Mhm.
Anyways. Oh, not to mention.
3 years is a long time, though.
No.
He-
I mean,
how do
it
you
is.
how do you even know that George and Bob saw each other when they did that?
Because if you're going to cover it for the news, you would think you would talk to the guy who's running it, right?
You would think, but is there proof of that? And again,
Not
I'm playing
necessar-
devil's advocate here. I'm just
Oh.
coming back.
No, there is no evidence that they met each other. But he also does make mention to Bob Lazar's jet car, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. I think that's a pretty good notion. Anyways, he doesn't explicitly mention him by name either. So, anyways. Also, Bob Lazar said that in 1978 he got a bachelor's degree in science and physics from Columbia University,
Mm-hmm.
which actually got shut down for selling degrees in the 90s.
Uh-oh.
So, also, bunk. Sorry. Anyways, where was I? So, we're going to get into the whole brothel and what that was all about.
Ooh.
And Bob Lazar is surprisingly pretty silent on it. He doesn't really like to talk about it that much.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he doesn't really know what to say.
You know, so what was the brothel?
All right, so
What was it called? Peach Fuzz Ranch or something?
no, Honeysuckle Ranch was
Even worse.
it was a different brothel.
Yeah.
I don't know the name for this one, but this comes from a magazine article, so I guess it could be slightly misconstrued.
Mhm.
But I think the things that they talk about, this came out at the time of the trial, like just after the trial.
Yeah.
And it talks about Bob and his friend Tony, who was a known prostitute in the area.
Oh.
How they rented 2 apartments next to each other, basically made a glory hole.
Oh.
So basically you would come in through one apartment and leave through the other. Also, they recorded customers' license plates in the parking lot. They took their photos as they came into the apartment.
Oh, it was...
And it also had the workrooms bugged, so
Yeah.
you could hear everything that was happening in there. And he was busted in 1999, June 5th, 1999, for pimping, not for anything else.
Yeah.
And he had 6 months probation, and he was forced to undergo therapy to not go near brothels ever again.
Big Pimpin' Bob Lazar.
We are so far from aliens at this point, you
Well,
guys.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, what if it... What... Alright, so picture this. Bob Lazar, he's the ultimate fall guy. He's kind of a putz. They hire him for S4, and they're like, we know you got ties to the brothels. We're trying to get some alien-human hybrids up in this Vegas area. We need some ladies to come down, check out with the alien boys at
brothels-
Homey Airport.
The brothels came after S4.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe he's been in a brothel game for a long time.
Oh my. Anyways, so in 2003, for selling illegal materials
For fireworks.
or materials to create illegal fireworks, he's placed under 3 years probation, and he's fined $7,500 for selling hazardous materials in public. Anyways, we already knew that. So December 2015, a woman dies of thalamin poisoning. That's an extremely difficult substance to obtain.
Yeah.
In August of 2016, a man, I think he's in Michigan, dies of thalamin poisoning as well. One of the only places that you can, not the only place, but one of the only places you can buy thalamin online is Bob's website.
Uh-oh.
So by the time they got a search warrant to search the place, it was the day after the interview was conducted.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't in response to the interview. It was because he was selling materials that killed people.
Oh.
That's why they searched the place.
Yeah.
Not for Element 115, not for aliens.
Is it illegal to sell that stuff, though?
I think it is.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
And he just has it on the website.
Yeah.
For sale.
Yeah.
He's like, check this out. It's
See,
great.
that's what I don't get. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, how, like, if the FBI is going to raid him, like, why don't they, like, I just don't see how you can be selling this stuff.
I don't know.
There's probably like a loophole to where it's like, oh, you're allowed to sell this much dangerous material that will kill people at a fraction of this.
Yeah.
And then he's probably like putting it in like, I don't know, diapers or something, and people are like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was gonna say, I mean, it could be, you know, because they talk about, oh, we did the interview, but we lost the tapes.
Yeah.
Could be 2 weirdos in the backyard getting a little too close to each other. They regret it the next morning, and they mysteriously lose the tapes.
That's what I wanted to talk about. The reason he's bringing up UFOs and S4 during the trial about the brothel thing is because they were filming the Lazar tapes just before the trial happened, and they filmed it also after 6 months probation, and that's when it was released, just after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, I haven't seen the Lazar tapes, but I'm pretty sure that's a big point in there, you know, considering
publicity's good publicity.
Yeah.
right. And so like it's not because it's harder to convince people, you know, he just did it because it was publicity.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he did it,
Mm-hmm.
to distract people from the fact that he was a pimp.
Yeah.
So
But was he a pimp in the 80s? Because that's when he was claiming to have worked there.
he had Honeysuckle Ranch in 1986.
Yeah.
That was one of
Oh.
his earlier brothels, not the one he got busted.
and then he made alien claims in 89. Was
And
it
got
89?
Yeah, I think it was 89.
Yeah, it's 89.
Yeah, so, I mean, I could go into it
Oh my gosh.
about how none of his science makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no basis for it. Bob Lazar, he can say, and I'm not going to fight you on it, if you believe Bob Lazar's story, if you believe that none of that actually matters, that only the S4 matters, I'm not going to fight you on it.
Yeah.
But these are facts. That's what happened.
The man is a known pimp.
Like
it's kind of like it's kind of easy for someone to claim like, oh, these things exist, and you'd be like, how, and they're like, alien technology. Like it's just, it's such a cop out answer.
Yeah.
Like we don't have the materials, it's not available. But at the same time, it could be true.
Yeah.
Like, not saying that Bob's story is true, but the fact that there are probably materials out there and technologies out there like that don't exist yet is very plausible.
You weren't around, Jasmine, but the Roswell and the Phoenix Lights, I believe those are actual UFO cases. I do believe that the U.S. government has UFOs and that they've reversed engineer them and try to figure out how they work. I don't believe Bob Lazar had anything to do with it. Yeah. I think he's into science fiction. I think he likes that stuff and him and George Knapp thought they could, because George Knapp covered everything Bob Lazar has done. George
He's
Knapp,
been the main reporter.
They're buddies.
They are, and I believe that they're just getting rich together. And I think I do believe UFOs are real. You know how I feel about Roswell.
Yeah.
You guys know how I feel about the Phoenix Lights. But I don't believe Bob Lazar is in any way, shape, or form telling the truth or even involved.
Unless he was trying to provide prostitutes for the aliens at Area 51. That's how they're trying to get secrets from the aliens. They're like, look at these Earth girls. Check them out. Get to know each other a little bit.
Well, if we've covered everything we need to about Bob, I just want to kind of talk about the psychology of conspiracy theories before we decide to close it out. It's not a lot. I only read one article about it. But because, just this whole idea of whether you believe Bob Lazar or whether you believe there's aliens at Area 51 and whatever, there's some psychology behind it. And as I scroll through my notes, because I closed them out because I decided while Eli was telling all that story to creep on Bob Lazar's social media and everything. So I read a Time article actually regarding believing conspiracies. Okay. So according to a 2017 paper in Current Issues in Psychological Science, psychologist Karen Douglas of England's University of Kent and her colleagues say that nearly all conspiracy theories satisfy three basic needs. They provide understanding and certainty, they create a sense of control and security, and they improve a believer's self-image. So, even if Area 51 isn't home to anything remotely alien, it's still a highly secretive military base and testing site. And so, in one sense, it is a conspiracy because it's a secret area, says David Ludden, professor of psychology at Georgia Gwinnett College. The government is doing something that they don't want the public to know about, whether it be weapons, whether it be technology, whether it be whatever. And one of the leading reasons that we send spacecraft throughout the solar system to search for other worlds that are like Earth is in the hope that we'll find signs of life, or at least places where life could take hold. And this article is quoted as saying, "It's an awfully lonely universe if we're the only place where the lights are on, and there's comfort to be had from the idea that the aliens will save us the trouble of looking for them and simply show up here instead." Other conspiracies include that the moon landing was shot on a soundstage at Area 51.
It was Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick was there.
That's a good future episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, old Stanley Kubrick. Let's see. We have moon landing was faked. We got reports that's where they might be housing those mutant Soviet children.
Oh, yeah.
That Stalin sent over. Underground.
The what? I'm sorry. Yeah. We didn't talk about that.
That was during Roswell.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't here.
You were a fly.
Stefan was a fly. You were telling him about the OA.
No, that was when you were talking about the Phoenix Lights.
Wait, where are we?
I don't know.
How long have we been on the spaceship?
Too long.
Stefan, where are you?
See, this is why it's hard to keep up with the stories, you know? The whole when we were talking about Bigfoot Mountain and I was like, "Oh, we added Stefan to the rotation because Jasmine's taking an acting class." And Eli was like, we met him on the top of Bigfoot Mountain."
Yeah.
Like, "No, Eli, let's talk real for a minute." I was not here.
Let's pull back the curtain and let people know
I wasn't
the real
here.
behind Cryptid Campfire.
I wasn't here when they talked about Roswell or the Phoenix Lights.
Shawswell.
Shawsbot. They got underground tunnels.
Oh yeah.
That go all. That's where those jumpsuit wearing doppelgangers came from, most likely.
Oh yeah.
They have secret laser weapons that they use to start forest fires.
Well, actually, those laser weapons are pretty real.
Yeah, but they start the forest fires with them. You know why?
Why?
The government's trying to take out a rogue operative, codenamed Smokey the Bear.
Smokey the Bear.
He's gone rogue.
It's Rambo.
Yeah, he's gone rogue since 1992. No one sees him, but they've been finding body parts all across the national parks. He's a menace that must be stopped.
And the government does leak it out by saying they're after Bigfoot.
Yeah, but really it's Smokey the Bear the whole time. Sentient pants-wearing bear looking to eat families.
Anyways.
But yeah.
What are you saying?
I don't even know anymore.
I don't even know why you're recapping things from other episodes. I'm so confused.
It's this plastic fire that we got going. The air's getting thicker and less breathable.
It's too much now.
It's very hot in this UFO as well, so I think we might try to close it down for this episode. Climb into our sleep pods, turn on the AC a little bit. But that was Area 51. The history of it, the conspiracy, the Bob Lazar angle.
The surprisingly disappointing amount of alien relevance that Area 51 has.
The surprising, no aliens, but a whole lot of prostitutes involved with the history.
Show me them aliens.
I'm getting some Bronze Age vibes from this. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about sea people, and
then it's
not sea people
not
at all.
But we didn't fight each other.
Yeah.
Did we fight each other today? Would you say that we fought each other? Oh, on the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Not today.
I don't think we fought each other on the Bronze Age.
I felt attacked.
Personally attacked. Jasmine just ripped into everything that you had that day.
I was like,
I think I've gained more respect for you as a researcher, I think is what has happened. Because when we did the Bronze Age, I was like, no, my research says this, and this has to be right. And now we're like, oh, we got different sources. Okay, that's all right.
Don't matter.
Eli had his 3-hour seminar that he watched about the Bronze Age. Jasmine had some articles. I watched a 5-minute crash course video, and I was like, what about the Himalayans and their corn stalk?
Anyways, I think that's enough for this week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot.
That was a lot to take in.
But I learned a lot, and hopefully it was entertaining for anybody who stuck through to the end.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I think we'll switch it up a little bit. So if I want to find you on the social medias, good sir.
You can find me at the Eli Watson. That's my Twitter and Instagram, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But also feel free to reach out to the Instagram page at Cryptid Campfire. I run that. That's probably a good place. If you DM me, I might respond.
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably respond.
And what about yourself?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. My name is the same at both places. It's my full name, Jasmine Maywith, JasmineMaewith.
And if you want to find me on social media, Instagram and Twitter, it's Alex Daikaiju. That's Alex Daikaiju. I also run the Cryptid Campfire Twitter. So if you comment on that, it's usually me or Jasmine has been co-hosting it with me.
I pop in every once in a while if I think there's something relevant. Alex does most of the promo and getting people to listen to us. Sometimes I'm like, hey guys, look at this cool thing.
I'll go on Twitter and it'll be like, yeah, 5 notifications. I'm like, I don't remember this tweet. When did this happen? But yeah, and if you had any questions, comments, concerns, you can email us at cryptidcampfirepodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
We always like getting emails. You can tell us what you like. What you don't like, keep that to yourself. If you have any cool stories, let us know. We like to hear them. And I think that's about it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in.
Be safe at Area 51, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, be safe.
Be safe. Just
Be well.
laugh at the memes. Don't be a fool that walks through the gate.
Yeah.
They will shoot you.
Yes.
So please don't die.
Yeah. Be safe. Go to that music concert. Have fun. Don't be a dick.
Be well.
Bye.
See you next week.